we've worked together to be able to put more of that work on the contractor and less on our workforce, so we can provide more response time to the existing machines. And then we want to assign crews to shifts. One of the pet peeves for me is whenever our customer engages the system, normally in the morning, our system should be ready to accept that customer. The trash can should be empty, the station should be clean, the ticket vending machine should be working. So the goal is to have all of that ready for the customers at 5 a.m. in the morning. And we're developing shifts now with this new consolidation and added workforce to be able to cover 7 days a week, more than one shift a day. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think we will see immediate improvement, in the next week or so. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
Questions for Steve? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't forget to check out the bus on your way out.
Okay.
Yep. Password.
Budget, Mr. General Manager.
I think we all wish that discussions around budget were a happier subject these days than they are. You couldn't help but see in the morning news that the difficulties both across the country and certainly within our state and within our region are serious. The announcement by Nike requiring to cut back. Obviously, the very large reduction in General Motors, although certainly those are not at the automakers, not surprising. Even if you saw in the headline on the top of the Metro section in the Oregonian this morning about the city of Portland looking at a $7 million reduction in the current fiscal year, that is, they are through June 30th of this year, and even deeper cuts next year. Certainly the information coming out of Salem, likewise, talking about the very dire circumstances. I have at your places an article that appeared last week in the New York Times, and it really talks about what's happening in transit across the nation. As you can see, particularly on the box on the back page of that, where they really highlight 6 different transit properties across the country and the dramatic issues that are being faced. Service cuts, increasing of fares, a series of other things. And I share that with you because it's quite clear that we, TriMet, are not immune to these exact same pressures, although certainly our funding comes a little bit different. Most of these are, in fact, as I look across them, they're all, to a large degree, sales tax driven. And sales tax tends to be able to be more quickly responsive to downturns in the economy, thereby prompting even a quicker reduction in funding for these properties. But it is exactly the same pressures and the same issues that are facing us at TriMet. Let me maybe talk just first a moment about the budget at TriMet. We are at TriMet in the FY09 budget, that is the one that yet goes through June 30th of this year. We have taken a number of steps to be able to reduce expenditures, everything from taking about $3 million out of our existing capital improvement program. The requirement was any projects that were not necessary for the safe operations of the system, or any project that's not yet been put under contract. We withdrew those funds from that. That saved about $3 million in our capital expenditure. We've also done a series of other things in reducing just day-to-day operating expenditures. There is no hiring that is going on. All hiring has been frozen. Only exceptions to that can be approved only by me. And even at that, we are looking at any hiring that may be allowed would have to come from inside as the primary purpose, because then you get to be able to maybe fill a more critical spot, but then not fill the spot that you filled from. Really doing a series of things. However, as we look toward the next fiscal year 10, and by the way, you'll be seeing this budget up before you in the next several months. You take several steps with this. That is, you end up first approving the budget to be able to be submitted to the Multnomah County Tax Supervising Commission, and then upon review by them, you ultimately have to adopt the budget by at the end of May, early June. So these issues in the FY10 budget will be coming before you, but I want to give you a preview of how serious these reductions are and some of the things that are there. In the FY10 budget, that is the one that is under development right now, that will be coming to you, I have directed a 5% across the board reduction, inevitable, and this is in all areas of our operation. In every place, budgets are being developed in that. I've also asked for an additional 3% to be able to be developed as a contingency, depending upon where the economy goes. I'm going to come back to some of those issues to give you a sense of how the economy is affecting where we are. That will mean, because about 80+% of our budget is in operations, inevitably that means that we're going to have to be affecting service. And again, the New York Times article talks some about what is happening in other parts of the country. Even in our own state, the Lane County, when Board Member Williams and I met with a board member and their general manager, they're talking about 15% level of cuts in Lane Transit District in terms of service, just because of where they are facing their financial conditions. Well, let me back up now and talk just a moment about the overall TriMet budget, so you're going to have a sense, and I don't mean this to be too much budget 101, but it's I think just to get a feel for it. Overall, the payroll tax is the principal funding source for TriMet. It accounts for just under 55% of our total budget, but is obviously very important. I'm going to come back to exactly how it's faring in this set of circumstances. There is also the passenger fare box. That accounts for about 21% of the budget, and although we have seen ridership up over the last number of months, it still represents just at that relatively a little bit above a fifth of our budget. There are some federal funds that flow to us, not for the capital project. I'm not talking about the building of the Green Line and others, but flows to us. There is a flat-out prohibition that comes from the early years of the Reagan administration, where operating revenue that used to be provided to transit districts through the Urban Mass Transit Authority administration, was eliminated, and there's a federal prohibition on any operating revenue, and that is a flat-out prohibition. But because of some of the flow of monies to rehabilitation and maintenance of the underlying rail facilities, whether it be subways in New York or heavy commuter rail in Boston, or light rail as we have here, there are a certain amount of federal funds that flow and represent around 20% likewise of our budget. All in all, however, there are, by the way, a few other pieces of money that flow. We get a little cigarette tax money to be able to assist with elderly and disabled. There's a little bit of general fund as well, but relatively small amounts. The big piece by far is the payroll tax, and then the fare box and what federal funds can be used to offset some maintenance costs represent the two other roughly 20% each ranges. What the payroll tax has seen, and as you watch in the news or read about it, is obviously the unemployment rates in the region are serious. Board member Lerbach and I were talking earlier. I mean, you're just feeling it in your membership across the board. Hard not to be able to see that happening. To give you a sense of the scale, we really have seen and have revised our expectation on payroll tax dramatically. I think you all know we use an outside economist, Eco Northwest, to be able to predict what they think is going to happen in the economy, and thereby what kind of expectation we should have for payroll tax revenue. And the base growth in that payroll tax has been dramatically revised downward even over the last year. We started last year with Eco Northwest expecting that we would have about a 7.3%